One of the most recognizable voices in gospel music, Donnie McClurkin, lately revealed something shocking that nobody anticipated. He is leaving the recording industry after decades of soul-stirring performances, chart-topping records, and a career that permanently altered the gospel genre. Here's the startling bit, though. This choice was made immediately following a severe health scare that almost permanently muffled his voice. What actually took place in the background? And why, at the height of his power, did Donnie decide to back off? You'll be shocked to learn the truth of his departure, so stay with me. For almost 30 years, the name Donnie McClurkin has been heard in stadiums, churches, and on the radio. He has been a titan in the gospel music industry, from his Grammy-winning performances to his moving worship compositions that moved millions to tears. Fans are shocked today, though. Why would a man give up recording entirely after dedicating his life to using music to promote healing and hope? We are delving deeply into the little-known tale of Donnie McClurkin's abrupt departure from the recording business in this video. We'll look at his career and problems timeline, see how a recent health scare changed everything, and share exclusive information that most fans have never heard before. You won't believe the emotional turning points, the intense testimony, and the behind-the-scenes struggles that brought him to this pivotal decision. And believe me, you will see Donnie McClurkin's journey in a way you never thought possible by the end of this video. The narrative is just beginning, so have a seat and stick with me through until the very conclusion. And the event that really made him face the truth of his future will be revealed in the next section. For many years, Donnie McClurkin has performed with unparalleled vigor, raising his voice in stirring tunes like Stand and We Fall Down, and inspiring millions of people to have faith even in the face of adversity. However, something unexpected was taking place behind the scenes. He was starting to lose his health. Donnie recently disclosed that he had gone through a horrific health crisis that left him and his loved ones completely shaken. It was more than a small problem. His life and purpose were called into question at that particular moment. Fans were left wondering whether they could lose one of the most adored characters in gospel way too soon after reports concerning his condition started to circulate. Donnie claims that the encounter involved more than just physical discomfort. It served as a spiritual awakening. He talked openly about how fleeting life is and how everything you've worked so hard to achieve can suddenly be taken away from you. The element that many people are unaware of is that this health fight drove a guy who had dedicated decades of his life to music and ministry to pause, think, and ask himself, what truly matters now? Donnie had previously dealt with health issues. He has actually struggled with personal issues throughout his career, including near-death encounters and accidents. And each time, he persevered with incredible fortitude. But it was different this time. In addition to putting his career on hiatus, the fear was so bad that it caused him to question whether he would ever be able to perform at the same level in a recording studio again. His close friends and coworkers called the situation heartbreaking. They revealed that Donnie's vulnerability behind closed doors, where he struggled with fear, doubt, and the sobering truth of aging, was the only thing that could equal his strength on stage. His body was telling him what to do after years of constant preaching, traveling, and recording. The moment has come to slow down. Donnie's personal life was not the only aspect of this health catastrophe. Within the gospel community, it caused a stir. Devastated, fans questioned whether they would ever hear him perform again. Rumors started to circulate in the meanwhile. Was Donnie McClurkin's time in gospel music coming to an end? However, as Donnie would subsequently disclose, the health scare wasn't merely a conclusion. It was the start of something new. One that would force him to make the hardest and bravest choice of his professional life. Here's the startling bit, though. There was more to this health scare than just his physical state. It exposed more profound spiritual and emotional issues that many people were unaware of. Donnie's choice to leave the recording industry finally made sense after those facts were revealed. We must go back in time and examine the path that led Donnie McClurkin to the pinnacle of gospel music and the significant costs associated with it before we can fully see why he decided to leave the recording business. Neither Donnie's ascent to stardom nor his instant sensation were natural. His early years were characterized by significant challenges, including as painful childhood events that influenced his ministry and personal life. He found comfort and healing in worship during those trying times, which stoked his love of music. Donnie's voice was more than just talent in many respects. For him and the millions of people who would listen to him in the future, it served as treatment. When he launched songs that would become gospel anthems all over the world in the 1990s, he made his breakthrough. Songs like Stand and We Fall Down were more than just songs. They were statements of faith that spoke to those going through their own struggles. Donnie McClurkin was suddenly more than just a singer. For generations, he served as a spiritual voice and a conduit for hope. However, the burden of duty increased along with his success. There are certain pressures associated with fame in the gospel industry. Gospel artists are frequently elevated to a position of spiritual perfection in contrast to secular artists. Religious communities that demand perfect honesty analyze every lyric, sermon, and public action in addition to fans. This pressure was constant for Donnie. The industry's requirements accompanied the spiritual expectations. It started to wear on him as he traveled across countries, played at large conferences, recorded records, and spoke to crowds while juggling a personal life. Donnie bore the weight of loneliness, tiredness, and the pressure to be viewed as a continual source of inspiration behind the thundering applause and stage lights. Many people were unaware of the silent price he paid for his fame. Sleepless nights getting ready for ministry engagements, long travels, and the strain on his body and voice started to pile up. And when you add that to the difficulties he personally had in his family life and relationships, it turned into a storm that was simmering beneath the surface. In interviews, even during his most successful years, Donnie was candid about his loneliness and the challenge of striking a balance between ministry and personal fulfillment. He freely acknowledged that he struggled with issues of identity, purpose, and even love. Millions of people could relate to him because of his vulnerability. However, it also demonstrated the extent to which the limelight had impacted him. In actuality, achieving success may be lonely. Donnie was giving up parts of himself for each sold-out show and each prize he held in his hands. In addition to giving him influence, his notoriety was subtly eroding his mental stability and, eventually, his health. This means that the latest health scare wasn't unexpected. It was the culmination of years of straining his body, mind, and soul. It was the point at which everything he had worked so hard to achieve finally fell apart. Donnie's choice to stop recording wasn't just motivated by fatigue or health issues, which is where the story becomes even more intriguing. It was also about his wish to live a genuine life, to concentrate on things that were more important than the praise, and to at last face the emotional struggles he had long kept hidden from the world. But before we disclose the true causes of Donnie McClurkin's departure, let's examine his journey's emotional cost, the ensuing debates, and the secrets that many in the industry have attempted to conceal. Donnie McClurkin's remarkable voice, his unparalleled worship anthems, and his capacity to uplift millions of people via song are the first things that spring to mind when people think of him. However, beneath that polished exterior was a guy with scars, hardships, and scandals that many people never really understood. Donnie's struggle with relationships and identity has been one of his most talked about struggles. He has frequently discussed his childhood trauma in an open manner, abuse that left wounds on his spirit as well as his body. Lifelong challenges resulted from these early wounds. Furthermore, Donnie acknowledged in interviews that healing was a continuous process rather than a one-time event. For someone in his position, this degree of openness was uncommon. Donnie's readiness to talk about his brokenness was noteworthy in the gospel community, where leaders are supposed to project an air of spiritual invulnerability. Others severely attacked him because they thought his public vulnerability could harm his reputation as a pastor, even though many respected his honesty. And it wasn't the only difficulty. Donnie has come under fire over the years for his opinions, remarks, and private life. His personal remarks, which were either misunderstood or taken out of context, were the source of some disputes and sparked contentious discussions in the church and the media at large. Tabloids eager to exaggerate any perceived defect drove others. Donnie kept singing and ministering through it all. However, there was a great deal of strain to live under such observation. Both admirers and detractors analyzed every slip-up, every remark, and every public appearance. Those closest to him were aware that the ongoing struggles were wearing him down. Despite the fact that he frequently exuded faith and fortitude, the need for leadership was another unseen battle. Donnie did more than only record music. In addition, he was a public figure who people went to for advice, a preacher, and a mentor. Managing these responsibilities left little time for his personal recovery. The world witnessed his might when he stood on international platforms, recorded records, or preached to thousands of people. Outside of the spotlight, however, Donnie was silently struggling with loneliness, tiredness, and the weight of expectations. And further source of stress was the recording industry itself. Donnie sought to preserve a pure heart of worship, but contracts, deadlines, tours, and the competitive nature of music frequently got in the way. He frequently acknowledged that he was conflicted between his sense of spiritual calling as a minister and the demands of the industry. For a man who valued genuine devotion, the music industry's politics were exhausting. And few people are aware of this. Controversy has an impact on one's health in addition to one's work. One of the biggest silent killers is stress. And the stress of public scrutiny probably made Donnie's health issues worse for someone who was already dealing with trauma, ministry, and celebrity. The body maintains a score. Furthermore, Donnie's health emergency wasn't an isolated incident. It was the result of years of caring more than one individual ought to. A breaking point was created by the culmination of all these covert conflicts. An unpleasant question had to be asked of Donnie McClurkin. Was it worth risking his health, his tranquility, and perhaps even his life to keep recording music? He made a self-choice for the first time in decades. The fact that Donnie's choice involved more than just stepping away, however, adds even greater impact to this tale. It was about taking a step into the unknown. His departure from the recording business marks a change in both his professional and personal goals. This is where it becomes even more startling. Donnie disclosed that his future priorities will be to live life to the fullest, mentor the next generation, and leave a legacy that goes beyond music rather than making albums. This change reveals something significant about his true heart. The gospel world was not the only one shocked by Donnie McClurkin's announcement that he was leaving the recording business due to a recent health issue. Fans from all across the world posted heartfelt, thankful, and loving remarks on social media. Donnie's songs were more than just music to many. They served as lifelines during times of hopelessness, beacons of light during perplexing times, and reminders of God's faithfulness during the most trying times. Not being able to fathom gospel music without Donnie's voice was something that some fans freely acknowledged. They talked about how songs like We Fall Down helped them get over heartbreak, addiction, and despair. Others recalled how Stand became into an anthem amid their own struggles with despair, illness, or loss. To them, these were more than just music. Donnie was the conduit via which they were conveyed. They were spiritual tools. There was also a tremendous reaction from the gospel industry itself. Respect and sadness were mixed together among other artists. Donnie was acknowledged by singers who were influenced by him as children, with opening the door for their own ministry. Leaders in the field agreed that his work had irrevocably influenced the sound of contemporary gospel, fusing modern music with traditional worship in a way that appealed to a wide range of listeners. Donnie was frequently referred to by coworkers as a friend and mentor. When they were at their lowest, some recalled private times when he offered counsel, support, or prayer. His influence extended well beyond the music charts because of his readiness to give to others despite facing his own struggles. Therefore, there was no overpowering feeling of disappointment or rage when word leaked out about his departure. It was admiration for his bravery in putting his peace and well-being first. However, not everyone responded sympathetically. Donnie still had more to offer, according to some critics, and it was premature to go away. Some even questioned whether this was a final decision, asking whether he would return after he had fully recovered. These uncertainties demonstrated how much his music is still missed around the globe and how hard it is for fans to believe that a voice with such strength would not be putting out new albums. But many people fail to see that Donnie's legacy is already safe. His influence is independent of upcoming albums or #1 hits. A generation of worship has already been shaped by his body of work. Millions have been impacted by his ministry. Furthermore, he is more relatable than nearly every other gospel performer of his day due to his candor about his hardships. Donnie's impact will last for decades even if he never makes another recording. It is possible that he wants us all to learn this lesson. Life is judged by the impact you make when in the spotlight, not by how long you remain there. Even if Donnie's songs are no longer being recorded, people all across the world will continue to sing them in their homes, churches, and hearts. However, there is a gap in the announcement. The question now facing the gospel industry is, who will take up the mantle? Donnie's shoes are difficult to fill, but younger musicians will need to step up to the plate. His special fusion of strength, vulnerability, and genuineness established a benchmark that will not be surpassed for many years to come. This is where the situation becomes even more fascinating. Donnie isn't going anywhere, even though he may be taking a break from music. His presence will still be felt, but in a more subdued, intimate, and possibly more powerful way because of his emphasis on mentoring, ministering, and maybe even live appearances. This change serves as a reminder that sometimes endings aren't truly endings. They mark the beginning of a new era. This departure isn't about loss for Donnie, it's about legacy, and the responses from peers, fans, and the industry only serve to highlight how far his tale has still to go. This is the bit you must hear though. Donnie's choice can potentially be a warning to everyone. It calls into question the demands we place on public characters, the costs of celebrity, and the significance of prioritizing peace and health over praise. We'll go into more detail about what this choice means for Donnie McClurkin's future and what we can all take away from it in the following part. Donnie McClurkin's announcement of his departure from the recording industry is more than just a job decision. Fans, the church, and even society at large are forced to pause and think during this moment. There is more to Donnie's tale than just music. It's about humanity, health, faith, and having the guts to put your own well-being ahead of what the general society thinks you should do. Donnie was burdened by expectations for decades. He was the vocalist who always had to perform, the leader who had to be resilient in the face of adversity, the preacher who had to motivate. However, his health scare made us aware of something that many of us don't realize until it's too late. Rest is necessary for even the strongest voices. Even the most talented people have their limitations. Even legends like Donnie have to decide whether to sacrifice their lives for what really counts or to push themselves to the limit. One of the most significant things his exit teaches us is this: a reminder that riches comes from good health. Peace of mind and physical strength are more important than any number of accolades, praise, or recognition. Donnie's decision to withdraw is not a sign of weakness, it's sagacity. He is demonstrating to his followers, his peers, and even the upcoming generation of artists that taking care of oneself is not selfish. It is a matter of survival. The value of genuineness is yet another lesson. Donnie has never been reluctant to talk openly about his doubts, reveal his shortcomings, or acknowledge his problems throughout his career. For some, his openness has frequently caused discomfort, but for others, who saw a mirror of their own suffering in him, it has been freeing. Donnie is remaining loyal to that genuineness by taking a step back now. He is deciding to live in reality rather than conceal himself behind the facade of a perfect celebrity. Realizing that he can no longer carry on in the same manner, this raises the question of what Donnie McClurkin will do next. Even while he might not be putting out new records, his voice is still very much alive and well. According to insiders, Donnie actually intends to devote more of his time to ministry, mentoring up-and-coming musicians, and investing in the next wave of gospel leaders. This might entail more conferences, more teaching, and possibly a few live concerts where his influence is seen outside of the hectic music industry in more private and personal settings. Donnie might also start composing, producing, or even starting projects that leverage his platform to encourage change outside of the music industry. After all, leaving a legacy involves more than just what you accomplish. It also involves what you leave behind for future generations to build upon. Numerous gospel singers will build upon the foundation Donnie has established, and his mentoring role has the potential to influence gospel music in ways that recordings alone could never. However, this may be the most important lesson to be learned from Donnie's departure. Seasons are a part of life. Donnie spent many years making music, touring, recording, and giving of himself all the time. He has now begun a new phase of rest, introspection, and reorientation. Maybe we should celebrate this change as a triumph rather than lament it. For even though the world may no longer hear Donnie McClurkin's brand new CDs, his influence, message, and example will endure long after the lights have gone out. Furthermore, Donnie's tunes aren't going anywhere, let's face it. Churches, playlists, and the hearts of people who were healed, inspired, and elevated by his ministry will all continue to hear his voice. One chapter may be closed by his departure, but another is opened. A quieter chapter, but one that might be even more impactful. What comes next then? It is not Donnie McClurkin who is going away. He's just changing his attention. He's making sure that his legacy is one of a guy who lived authentically, impacted others profoundly, and showed the world what it means to depart with dignity, faith, and purpose, rather than just being known as a gospel singer. And this is where we are presented with a challenge by his story. Will we be able to make such difficult choices for ourselves? Even though the world expects us to continue, are we courageous enough to let go of things that no longer benefit us? Donnie's story serves as a reminder that sometimes stepping down is the most powerful thing you can do.